I had a bit of a hard time kind of listening to people, and art had always been a very solitary thing for me, where I would create art on my own and then I would show people and that would be it. Because when you're in high school, you're usually, you know, kind of the best artist. And it was only when I started listening to my teachers, taking in critique and kind of adapting, that I was able to do things with my art I previously hadn't been able to do. I never thought I'd be able to draw realistically. I never thought I would use reference or be able to draw hands. I just didn't think I'd be able to do it. And through time and trusting, I kind of slowly began to grow and slowly started to pick up my own kind of theme for what I wanted in my art. And one thing that was clear is that I loved both, you know, black and white art, but also using color. I kind of fell in love with the medium gouache, but I also learned in this time, the one thing I really wanted to include in my art was my own personal sense of humor and kind of incorporating that and playing into that more often. Different things such as line art. This is from a project I did where I had to fill, not had to, I did in my own time, where I filled an entire sketchbook with 115 pages. And this is after I finished my final sophomore year. And I kind of, through doing that within like 2 weeks, found myself, which led me into the following semester, which was my junior year. This is when I started to kind of trust my community at MassArt more, and I really felt at home. Within the studio space for the illustration department, I spent like every day there. Like I would wake up, I'd get in there at 10, I would leave at like late into the night, and through the day you get to meet other people, talk about your art, discuss. This is one of the first pieces I did junior year. My friends hadn't shown up and I decided to do a piece kind of about how joyful I was to see them again. This kind of continued and I leaned more into what I wanted to do with my art. I was able to create pieces that had more detail and carried off more thing. This is one of my finals for advanced drawing projects, which is a class that's supposed to be very monotone and drawing from life. And I kept convincing the professor to let me do more and more things. This is a scene from Alice in Wonderland where she kind of gets stuck and she drinks the potion. She's stuck in the house. It's like 30 inches by 40 inches. It was huge. I had to lug this around wherever I went. I also, at MassArt, had the chance to do an independent study, which is when you kind of write up a prompt for your own class. So if there's not an elective that covers something for you, you can pretty much find an advisor and make your own schedule and do your own project. I decided to do a calendar piece. While I wasn't able to finish all 12 illustrations within a semester, I got up to like 7. And so each month kind of displayed my different feelings towards the month. This one's Burning Meat. It's for July. Other things like teachers asking you to do posters or doing posters for assignments, I was sort of able to take every assignment and do it in my own way. We do a really great thing at MassArt called Noodle and Doodle. It's run by Bob Maloney, where he brings in live musicians and you're allowed to go in, listen to live music, and then draw them like their figure people. Beyond that, I was still working on, you know, kind of my stylistic way of doing things with gouache and painting things, between like still working with graphite like I love to do as a high schooler. And my teacher kind of saw that and suggested that I did it for a project where we work with the symphony orchestra. I forget their exact name, but they'll do a very specific musical number and they'll have us kind of draw for it. And those who win the contest have their work displayed. Because of COVID, we never got it displayed, but in the end, I created a piece. It's a A3 size, it's around 11 by 17, but I spent a lot of time and I was able to put in the details, and I kind of realized how much as I love humor, I also loved extreme detail. So for my thesis, I knew that I wanted to include that. I also really like sculpture, and at first I thought I might want to include that as well. This is from the book arts class. It's a really cool thing called a tunnel book, where you kind of create the layers, and as you're working on it, you kind of have to think about how they're gonna line up and how it's gonna work with the story. So like thinking about art beyond just the page would always, like when I did 3D, it always informed 2D. When I did 2D, it always informed 3D. And then here I am in senior year, still working on pieces. this is a piece from my editorial about how work affects us, and the table's a cog, and learning different skills of what you're going to use once you step out into the real world. I also, over the summer, had a chance to do a mural at the pottery shop where I work. Because it was shut down and they were doing pottery kind of out of the place, I spent a lot of time in the restroom just painting on the walls, which it felt so sinful and wrong to paint on a wall and like draw, because your whole life you're told like not to do that. And then I was sitting there for hours just painting on a wall. And it wrapped around. This is more work from editorial. I had to paint all of these. They're like 9 by 12. I had to paint all of them in 1 week. And it was like, oh. So it's a lot of work, but it definitely ramps up your passion for what you're doing. And you'll always be suggested to include the work and things you love to draw within the homework you create. So, and then moving on to kind of wrapping up, working on my thesis currently, I chose the topic of child marriage and how it's spread across the kind of globe, and it's a widely ignored thing. I chose to write a short story and then illustrate it. So I'm currently working on that, and I just almost finished up my second panel. And I kind of realized that like when you want to just tell someone about something that you find, you know, like horrific, they may not always want to absorb that information. So I wrote a story in which kind of carried across my opinion and the horrors of that thing that happens, child marriage, and presented in a way where it was educational and describing, yet consumable and fun. And then this is more kind of process leading up to the choices I would make, kind of through the steps of how I would paint something, and then the kind of final image I'm working on currently. And that's been my MassArt experience. I wouldn't trade a second of it.
Thank you so much, KK. I think it's especially interesting to see your process, sort of how many initial stages this final piece goes through before it's, you know, in this amazing final stage.
It takes so long.
And I am fascinated by this topic. I would really look forward to seeing the final product.
It's a very widely ignored thing. It even happens in America, because it's a factor that counters in with all like organized religions, is there's usually a place where child marriage is present.
Gosh.
Right?
Well, I do not want to be the one hogging the mic. Does anybody have any questions for KK while we have her here? I'm not sure what you think is best, if we should facilitate questions via the chat, or if people should ask any questions verbally if they have them.
Verbally's fine. I can't see the chat.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, let's do it. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and hop off mute.
Well, they could also just like type it out and then you could read it off.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just can't see it.
So I actually have a question. So do you think in the illustration major, do students tend to work more traditionally or digitally? Because I know there's somewhat of an expectation that you know like things like Photoshop and Illustrator, but like for me, I tend to work traditionally, and I tend to be stronger traditionally. So I was wondering if you have like, I don't know, what the makeup of the average.
Oh, I have the drama for you. So I've noticed a recent trend is that a lot of students will work digital since it's quicker to do and it takes less time. I personally love to work traditionally. I have the grip on my hands. But there are projects such as these where I would do it digitally because I recently got in the program.
And what
for a lot.
Sorry, go ahead.
You do take classes like digital illustration and word and image that will teach you kind of the trade, because they want you to have a background knowledge. They want you to have the tools. And usually when you have traditional, for it to be online, you're going to need to go through some facilitation of digital work. I don't know many classes that will kind of force you to do strictly digital. I would also recommend, if you are leaning towards and curious about digital, drawing something out and then tracing over it digitally, way easier. For both these images, I've drawn them out multiple times. It's a great crossover. But a lot of students nowadays do like digital, but it's not really the favorite of the major. I would say a lot of teachers kind of internally prefer to see you do traditional. And when you're a sophomore and even leading into a large portion of junior illustration, you will be asked to do traditional work.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I think that's it. May I ask you what program you use to do these two? Just out of curiosity.
I recently got an iPad Pro, so I was using Procreate.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
But I had
cool.
done like previous work sophomore year, way long back, where I had done it, oh God, so far back in Photoshop, and it was hard for me to do.
Right. Photoshop can be very difficult to work in. I wish I had an iPad so I could work in Procreate.
Yeah, the difference between like the tablet before you versus just drawing on something is very different.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's all. Thank you. Your work is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It took a long time.
Yeah, and I can see that through like, how much detail you can get. That's beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna go back on mute.
So did I see that you were doing some printmaking in there too? It looked like there might have been an etching or two.
There's no printmaking. I did do an internship over the summer with Jon Chevrette, who is a kind of master woodblock print man, and I was able to go in and spend the summer making a print. I didn't include that here, but I think what you might be referring to is this one.
Yes.
I did this. To me. It looks a lot like an etching, but I used a Jelly Roll pen, and I used like the entire thing to complete this. It's 11 by 17. We had 1 week to do it, and I was just going in with pointillism. You get really close with your pieces. You have to carry them around like dogs.
Yeah, that is a ton of detail. But even if that was an etching, that would be a ton of detail. I can't even imagine.
You can also, like when you're at MassArt, take like print classes. A lot of students are recommended to do it. I just personally chose to do an internship.
Bailey's mic is not working, but Bailey just wanted to share that they think your art is adorable and loves the flow that all of your pieces have.
I've been described as idyllic and organic, which is something I definitely leaned into.
Yeah, definitely. Well, does anybody have any last questions for KK?
So KK, I have a couple questions. One comment. Your work is beautiful, and what a range of work. And looks like you're working 24 hours a day. But I'm wondering how you felt about the workload at MassArt in the illustration program, and what are your plans after graduating? And does the college have programs where you can meet or find other jobs?
I will start out with the workload just to go in order. I find that the workload is always worked out strangely well for me. So like you have a balance of academics and we say like studio classes, so academic and studio. So like your writing and science and like the fun stuff. So for some students, because I've TA'd and I've known like sophomores, it's been too much for them and it takes a little bit to get the pacing right. But I've also found that teachers are more forgiving than they're originally described. A lot of times they'll say that like, if you're given a critique, they'll give you more time to go back because they want to see it improve. They want to see you finish. So at the end of the semester is usually when like finals are due, but you always need something to come into class for something to be talked about. So always bring, even if it's just thumbnails, like something to talk about so you have a basis to go off of. I personally have enjoyed the workload. I'm the kind of person that if there's no time, I will make time because I just want to get it done and see the end to it. I'm not really the type of person who goes out and parties necessarily, but I do spend a lot of time with my friends, or when I could spend time with my friends, I spent a good hefty amount of time. Career-wise, probably a better question for the people who've already graduated, but from what I know, when you kind of end as in the illustration department, they have a whole last semester is dedicated to senior illustration and portfolio. Portfolio basically has you making those kind of postcards that you send to various people you've researched. You're developing a website, portfolio, all things to manage yourself as a business. So a lot of people have said it's kind of what you make of it. So if you really have this dream and you keep working on it and you manage your expectations, as I've heard, because from all the different MassArt, you know, alumni, it will work out for you.
Thank
So
you.
I actually have another question. So are you taking courses online or are you doing it on campus right now? Like, just during this whole pandemic?
Well, after spring break last semester, we kind of like locked up and they didn't let us return. So we did a lot of online classes, which is a bit rough for illustration, especially for my work, because it looks better in person. A lot of the classes will be completely remote currently, but for me personally, for my thesis class, the head of the department, Margot, has been coming in to meet me at my studio because she's a lovely woman, and talking to me and sitting down and having those face-to-face conversations that I really need and other students in my class needed. So some classes are hybrid, some aren't.
I see. And so is it normal for MassArt students to have like their own studio? Is that typical of like the upperclassmen students, or like is it
Typically what I knew before kind of the pandemic is that sophomores typically wouldn't ask for a studio. The seniors would get first choice and they would have their own desk and they'd be able to, you know, on the 9th floor of tower, they would have their own space. Juniors usually would pair up with another illustration student or communication design, and they'd have their desk together. I was constantly, a lot of people don't even need to share their desk, like people usually at different times they come in. I was constantly with my friend. And then sophomore, I did a lot of my work at home. So it's kind of like a matter of who gets what. And then currently, because of COVID, a lot of the desks people asked for remain empty, but they spread them across the school.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Just to clarify, the communication, did you say it was communication designs? Is that MassArt's graphic design degree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Digital, all that. They know the typography like the back of their hand.
Font masters.
They're like the strangest bunch of people you've ever met. They're so normal, but they're artists. It doesn't make sense. But you have to also like take classes that they take, like word and image. Like you have to learn how to, you know, make a book cover.
Mm-hmm. So those two majors are pretty closely intertwined.
It's like they put us in the same area because they want us to make friends. They're like, come on, like make a career together, like do something. And we're like, no, I refuse.
It's like you format the words in the book and you draw the pictures.
Yeah, they always like think we're gonna do something. It never happens. In my personal case, I don't. They're sweethearts. I don't get them.
Well, thank you again, KK, for sharing your work. I'm getting a lot out of it, so I hope the students are too. It was such a joy to be able to learn from your experience. Thank you so much.
Had a good time so far.
So luckily, Alyssa is also here with us. Alyssa graduated from Mount Wachusett Community College and graduated from MassArt and Fashion Design. She's a textile CAD designer for a clothing company and is actively exhibiting her artwork. So Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us, and
for having me.
Looking forward to seeing some of your work as well.
Okay. All right, so my name's Alyssa. I graduated from MWCC in 2012, and then I transferred to MassArt and graduated in 2015. And so I was in the fashion program, and we had the opportunity to, you know, explore different avenues and find out what we were interested in. So, you know, we had like a non-textile project where I used photo negatives and VHS tapes. We had Jeffrey Bean inspired project. We had menswear, swim, women's wear, bridal, and there's probably more that I'm forgetting. And then we also had a specialized fashion course where we would explore accessory design, footwear design, jewelry design, and, like create tech packs, and which is actually really helpful for my job now. And then we had our thesis where we designed 4 looks, and then we had to make our portfolio. And it was just like a really great learning experience. I got to try so many different things, and it was really great. And then we also had a lot of opportunities at MassArt to showcase our work. So I had some pieces at the Copley Mall. I had a piece in the Seed Fashion Show in Rhode Island, and then I received a scholarship to go to Paris for a month-long seminar, which was a really amazing experience. And we're just like really immersed in the culture, and we got to live on this beautiful campus, and we learned about different aspects of the industry. We had a group project, and then we were able to volunteer at Men's Fashion Week at the time, because we were there in like June, which was really great. And then I also, at MassArt, I had 4 different internships. All but one were paid, which was really great because I didn't have time to have like a part-time job. And so I interned at Maggie Inc., which was a modeling agency, Sandricelli, which is a dress shop, the Boston Conservatory. I interned in the costume shop, and then Bemis Associates, which was like a sportswear internship. And I actually reached out to Bemis after I graduated because I just kind of wanted a little more experience, and I wanted to get into sportswear at one point. And so I reached out to them, and they thankfully gave me a paid internship, and it was a really awesome hands-on experience where, you know, we got to create these mood boards, and I got to make my own pieces. They worked a lot with they're really innovative, and they had these techniques for sew-free bonded garments. So they worked a lot with the different sportswear companies in Boston. Like they work with Converse and New Balance, and so it was just like a really great opportunity to work with them and to meet different people within the industry. And then I also interned at Sandricelli when I was in college, and it turned into my full-time job right after school. And so I worked there for a few years, and so we like I was like a bedazzler, and so we did the costumes for the cheerleaders, Patriot cheerleaders, and then we worked for different events in Boston. And when I was at Sandricelli, one of my former professors, Jennifer Verkamp, reached out and told me that there was an opportunity at TJX for an assistant designer position. So I interviewed for that, didn't get the job, but I had friends that worked there, so they kept they put my name up there. And so I got contacted to interview for a contract CAD artist position, which I ended up getting, which was great because it was children sets and separates, but I was basically illustrating all day, scanning it in, and then recoloring the artwork and manipulating it in like Photoshop and Illustrator. And it was just really great to see the product in stores and see kids wearing it. And I was like the greatest job. And so I worked there for 2 years on the contract. And then I also felt like I needed like women's wear experience for the future. So I got a job at J. Jill, which is my current job. And I was an assistant CAD artist in textiles. So basically illustrating prints for the garments, and then we like purchase artwork and we recolor it and we manipulate it and we put it in repeatable sizes for production. And then I also get to like hand paint stuff, which is great. But I just recently took on a different role as an assistant accessories designer. So I work with or create scarves and belts, handbags, footwear, and ponchos and wraps. And it's been like a crazy learning curve because like you're learning about the different fabrications for things and techniques, and then you communicate constantly with vendors that are within the US and then internationally, which has been really fun. And then outside of work, I still try to be creative and keep busy. So when I was in school, they told us about this independent handbag designer awards, and they encouraged us to apply if we had the time. And so I did that, and I've been doing it for a year since, and I've been a finalist a few times, and it's a really great opportunity because the award ceremony is in New York, and then there's finalists from all over the globe. So I've been able to connect with people from everywhere, and I've made so many great friends and like networked, and you can like collaborate with people, and it's really great. And if you win, you have the opportunity to collaborate with like big name clients, which is really great. And then on the side, I also just submit to art shows around New England because I just love to create art and just be busy all the time. And I've done some like fashion shows and stuff like that. And yeah, that's it.
Wow, thank you so much, Alyssa. This is, what an incredible career. So many different steps. And one question that I had for you is, it seemed like when you were studying at MassArt, there were so many different elements of fashion that you studied. And then it seemed like you were using a lot of those different elements in your many different roles. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the curriculum structure. As a senior, do you feel like you were still, you were kind of designing your own program of study, figuring out what your thesis was, and what your, I guess, what your forte was at that time?
So at that point, I was really interested in women's wear, and it was a time where you were really figuring things out. I feel like the balance with academics and the studio courses was great, but I like spent all that time focusing on, you know, women's wear. I never even thought about children's or anything outside of that, but sorry, what was the question?
Just asking about your senior year. I mean, it just seems like, you know, I mean, it was really valuable for you to be studying all of these different elements of fashion, but I was just wondering if there was one point towards the end of your studies at MassArt where you focused on one thing, but it was, but you said women's wear towards the end of.
Well, yeah, definitely women's wear towards the end. I think my last internship when I was there was at the costume shop. So like a little bit of me wanted to do costuming for like television and film for a little bit, but then I figured to be a little bit more practical, I would stick with women's wear. So I focused on that for my senior thesis.
Wow, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
I actually have a question. The models here, does the school contract out professional models, or are these other students? Did you have to find them on your own? I'm curious about what that process was.
The school would contract them out from like the local agencies in the area. So like Maggie Inc., which I interned for, we had models from there, and then we have like Model Club in Boston, so they chose models from there as well.
Great. Alyssa, so great that you could join us.
Thanks for having me.
I had a couple of questions for you. One was, you graduated from Mount Wachusett, and going into the fashion program, there's probably a lot of courses that wouldn't transfer. And so you probably lost some time. And so I'm wondering what you thought about that. And then I just had a question about your artwork, because it looks like you're actively exhibiting your artwork that you had started to pursue at Mount Wachusett. And that's so impressive that you're doing both. Yeah.
Sorry, I blank on the questions like every time.
So about the courses that you took at Mount Wachusett and transferring, and some classes in transfer. So how did you feel about that?
It wasn't actually too bad. I feel like the courses from MassArt satisfied some of like the fine art courses or classes at MassArt. I mean, obviously the fashion program I had to just like start from the beginning, but there were some courses I didn't have to take, which was fine overall. And then yeah, the artwork that I was exploring at the Mount when I left, I didn't want to give up on it, so I still do it all the time now. And it also kind of helps with the work that I do with illustrating for accessories now. And then when I was doing CAD work in the textiles, because they knew that I could paint and draw, so they're like, let's take advantage of that, because other than that, we purchase prints, and like that's a lot of money. So when they found out that I could paint and draw, they're like, okay, you're going to do some work for us. So like that was like my new thing, was creating prints. And yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I just have a quick question. I have like a mild curiosity of fashion, and like I don't know if I pursued that at MassArt, but I'm just wondering, do you guys have like any type of like student fashion show or anything like that, where you just have like, you know, everyone's designs just like, you know, for like one event, or like do you have anything like that? Or
yeah, at the end of the year they put on this big fashion show where all the different grades get to showcase their work, but a lot of students do work on this like little projects on the side, and they put on their own shows for their friends and stuff like that, or just like around the area. So I know there's a lot of students that put on their own like little mini shows, which was great.
Oh, that sounds really cool and fun. Okay, that's all I wanted to ask. Your work is really beautiful, and I'm really amazed by the amount of like the breadth of work that you have. It's really cool and inspiring. So that's all I wanted to say.
The amount of detail is absolutely incredible. Tom had sent over a link to your website, and I was looking at it a few days ago, and I was just amazed by just how intricate of details you got in that. But I also want to ask you, what made you choose MassArt over some of the other fashion design programs in the area?
I just wanted to be closer to home. I thought MassArt was great. I know I transferred a little bit later, so I had some friends that had gone there before, and they just talked about how great the school was, so I was totally interested. And yeah, it was just close, and I heard the teachers were great, so give it a shot.
Actually, I have one more question. Were you part of like any clubs or anything like that when you went to MassArt, or?
I didn't.
No.
No,
Okay.
well, I did like a dance. I did a dance club, but not like
Yeah.
art related. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Did you already know how to sew before you went into the fashion degree, or was that like something, or did you like have to learn there?
I was self-taught. So
Yeah.
really, I had to like retrain myself the proper way of how to
Right.
sew.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's interesting. Cool.
Yes, I'm glad we're recording this because we have a few students that couldn't make it that are interested in fashion design.
Cool.
Does anybody else have any questions for Elisa?
Just if someone is interested in going into fashion design, especially after leaving them out, would you recommend them trying to learn to sew on their own, or just hold off and wait until they could learn to do it the way that they're supposed to at the school, so they don't have to go back and relearn?
I would say just teaching yourself, especially if you love to sew and you like to create things. Like I just like to make stuff, so I would just make myself clothing all the time because I wanted to. And if you want to just learn and teach yourself, it's totally fine. I mean, it's good to reinforce or just kind of relearn those techniques. But if you want to express yourself, and just have fun now. I think it's fine to like get yourself used to it anyway. So.
Okay, one more question. So do you have like a particular piece that like has an interesting story, or like something that was just like personal to you at all? Like it seems like you put a lot of love into your work, so I'm wondering if you have like a particular piece that you're proud of and you want to like talk more about, just out of curiosity.
Fashion, I don't know. I guess the photo negative piece for the non-textile was really big because I love taking photos, and like
Right.
My family, we just had like a tote filled with photos and photo negatives, and I'm like, every time I like stitched a piece together, it was great to like see every sort of memory and know that that piece, I mean, it's going to be represented in this piece.
Right.
So like I have, and it means a lot to me, and I like preserved it because it's my memories from my childhood and from my family. So,
That's cool. Yeah, you know what, that piece kind of like stuck out to me, so I'm glad that you elaborated more on that. Cool, thank you.
No problem.
It's so fun even now seeing when that project gets done and seeing everyone run around and try to figure out what non-textile to use.
Yeah.
It's like the best weeks at MassArt.
It's crazy.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Elisa, for sharing your work. The last presenter that we are so lucky to have joining us is Jon Chevrette. I hope I'm saying that right, who also graduated from Mount Wachusett Community College and recently graduated from MassArt in industrial design. So thank you, Jon, for joining us. Yeah, big congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very happy to just graduate. Now the next step is trying to figure out what the heck I do next.
Yeah, indeed.
So bear in mind, it seems like my connection on my end might be a little bit unstable, so we'll see how this goes as I'm presenting. So apologies if anything happens. Let's see. Screen share. Yes. All right, you guys seeing okay? All right, perfect. So first off, hello, welcome, Mount Wachusett Community College artists, but also Sizer School high schoolers. Quick thing right beforehand. So the way I went about this presentation, I didn't go into too in depth about each one of my projects. instead, this presentation is kind of more on to what industrial design is and different touchstones of like what you kind of do as an industrial designer. So yeah. So hi, I'm Jon Chevrette. I'm currently an industrial designer, just graduated from MassArt, like we said. And this is a picture from one of last year's events that we had with ID and networking. So there's kind of a little splash page I had, and with a little motto here I had about myself, and that was, as a designer, I'm often curious in the story behind everything, a reason for creation. It kind of makes me feel like a detective getting to the bottom of a mystery. I'm also here because I love people and attempting to make their lives a bit easier than it was yesterday. And that kind of touches upon what industrial design is in some sense going forward. So I used to be at Wachusett Community College as well. I got to be part of the art club, like some of you guys are now. And I also got to actually help organize some of the stuff. So it's really good to see all you guys still doing stuff. And it's good to see Tom. And yeah. And this is some of my work way back when. I just kind of wanted to show you some of the work I did back at Mount Wachusett and how that translates over to what I do now. So at the time when I was transferring over, my advisor at Mount Wachusett, her name's Joyce Miller, and she helped me when it came to transferring over. At the time, we needed to figure out what classes obviously lined up with the classes that we had at MassArt. And I needed to make sure that I covered my bases when it came to three-dimensional sculpture and drawings and everything in between to be able to help get me into industrial design. And I actually, luckily enough, because of the way that I lined up everything at Mount Wachusett, I was able to actually bypass my freshman year at MassArt and go straight into my major as a sophomore. I think there was only one class that I had to do as a fundamental from freshman year class when I transferred over. But once I got to industrial design at MassArt, it was a lot to take in. And this is some of my first stuff that I ended up doing when it came to sketching and drawing. So as an industrial designer, what is an industrial designer actually? Sorry, my bad. What is an industrial designer? So the first time I heard what industrial design was, my first thought was, oh, okay, am I building factories? I don't think I want to do that. And learning real quickly, no, industrial design is actually product design and consumer design. So anything that you buy really when it comes to these laptops that you're using now for the Zoom call or your phones or even the chairs that you're sitting on, someone had to draw that up, and more likely that was some form or another of a product designer. But it goes further into that as well, into systems and services as well. So these are some product designs that I did sometime between sophomore year and junior year, kind of showing that. And when you have a highly rendered sketch, it's called product rendering, is when you implement that color into it. So as I was saying, product design. So this is a project that I did. It's called a jog box, but basically what happened was a company came to us and to our class, and they asked us to redesign a remote control for one of their machines. And the remote control was outdated. The ergonomics behind it and the way that they were holding it was uncomfortable. So basically they came to us as industrial designers and was like, hey, you need to redesign how it looks for us and how it operates. So it's a combination between function and form. So going back into some of the skills from Mount Wachusett, let's say the sculpture class, and learning how to scale things up properly, that kind of stuff came in really handy going forward into MassArt, because if I was learning to scale things properly when it comes to model making and helping out with these components here and these controllers. So again, a lot of model making, a lot of sketching. When you start off with a product, you would obviously do a lot of research to begin with, but after that, you basically keep on making models and basically keep on sketching until you get a refined product in the end. But at the same time, it's not just models and sketching as well in a physical sense. It's also a lot of CAD work as well. Me, myself, I'm not too good with the CAD, but that's the great opportunity about being an industrial design, is there's a lot of different avenues that you can take, and it's so broad in what you can do as a designer. So you learn CAD, and that might be one way to be able to solve the solution. Basically, as an industrial designer, the whole point of it is that you're trying to be able to solve for someone's, trying to be able to solve a solution for someone's problem. And whatever way you do about going that, whatever works is is best. But another class at the same time that I wanted to show that I really highly enjoyed, and this one you don't have to be an industrial designer to take. This one you can also just take as any major. It was called Toys for Elephants. It was an awesome class. And I think it's technically ran by the sculpture major department. And it's quite literally in its name, you get to make a toy for an elephant. But as an industrial designer, it fits so well because you're making a product in some sense, but it's for an animal. We got to go to the Buttonwood Zoo, and we got to be able to meet two of the oldest elephants in America, Ruth and Ellie, and we got to basically split up into teams, and we got to be able to design a toy for them that was able to enrich their lives and be able to stimulate them. And the picture you see there with the, I think that one's Ellie, you're able to see her, that's the toy that I was able to make in the end. And yeah. So at the same time, when it comes to industrial design, again, as I said, very product-based when you start off, it is an idea of manufacturability. So making sure that the products that you make, if you're working for a larger scale company, is being able to manufacture that on a wider scale. So this is an example of a stool that I made within my manufacturing class, and we had to be able to make up the specs for it to be able to be cost effective and at the same time hold up within its manufacturing. But with all that being said, I keep saying stuff about products, but as I went further into industrial design, it's tricky because, as I said, it's broad and it's not just products itself. Most of the time when students come in wanting to be industrial designer, the first thing that they say, I've heard it multiple times, is they want to design cars and shoes. But further along you go into it, it's so much more than that. As I said, it's about solving solutions. And as an artist and a designer, it's about being able to visually display those solutions for communication. So it's also systems and services as well. A good example of that was some of these pictures come from a class I took called Product Development Lab. But what happened was we were working with the Mayor's Office of New Urban Mechanics. The Mayor's Office came to our class and they were asking us, trying to figure out, in 2030, they were thinking about having self-driving cars in Boston, and they wanted to know what the public would feel about that, and if it would actually solve for a solution with public transportation and congestion. And at first, we were thinking maybe, okay, so you want us to design up cars, but it wasn't that at all. In reality, what it was is we need to figure out how the public felt about this idea that the mayor's office had, and we needed to figure out how we can display information for the citizens and at the same time inform them and be able to give them a voice to see, is this the solution they want for their city? And if not, what other solutions can there be to be able to help with this problem that they were having? So it gets confusing after a while because it's products, it's systems, and it's services, but what it really is just kind of problem solving in general. And that's pretty much what it is that I have for now, but thank you. Another thing I'd like to be able to shout out to is right now, post-graduation, doing an internship with a company called Forma, but I'm also right now as an industrial designer and this other guy, we started up a podcast talking to artists and designers and talking about their experiences. Every episode we sit down with someone, a different type of artist, and we get to be able to talk to them about the type of art that they do. It's called Bad Media. You can check that out on Spotify. Sorry, I just wanted to quickly throw that out too. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. That Toys for Elephants class sounds like just the most fun class in the world.
It absolutely was. It was a joy the entire way through.
Yeah, I mean, what an experience. How much time did you get to spend with the elephants?
We had one day where we got to visit at the beginning of the semester with the elephants. We got to see them in person, and then one time at the end. So there was 2 times, and everything was in between of at the studio.
That's so
Looks like
cool.
Ellie enjoyed that class too.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, we were on the newspaper and everything. And the best thing about this too, the teacher that we're working with, Rick Brown, and the toys that we created, I guess afterward, the kind of like you can say the blueprints, but how we made the toys, they got sent out to other zoos and sanctuaries so that if they want to be able to make the toys that we just made, they can go about doing that accordingly.
Wow. That's a really cool class.
That's great, John. We got to see your work and to learn more about the profession. So nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I also really love seeing where I think especially it looks like almost like so much of your work relates directly back to Tom's 3D design class, like that one right there. I'm getting like flashbacks of like styrofoam all over me looking at it.
Yeah,
But that's
I
really
was
cool.
trying to say in the presentation was,
Yeah.
hey, listen to Tom and the model making because it comes in handy later.
3D design was one of my all-time favorite classes, so.
John, did you have a chance to get any feedback from the elephants on what kind of a toy they liked the best?
Well, so one thing, I guess in some sense, kind of, we put all the toys out in their space, and they split it up. They have like an outdoor space and an indoor space, and we put it all outside, and then we let them out, and we got to watch and see them play with the toys, and we got to kind of see which ones they liked the best. Mine was pretty popular, but.
Say, it looks like yours was pretty successful in that respect.
Oh yeah.
Did anybody else have any questions for John?
Other than 3D design, what were some of your favorite classes at the Mount that you felt really helped?
I would kind of say just really all of it. Between the painting classes that I was taking and overall just sketching, because a lot of it here, especially hard line sketching and perspective, making sure that you have your perspective down and hard lines when it comes to construction of a drawing is important. And that was definitely something that as I was going about my drawing classes at MassArt, I definitely keep thinking about from Mount Wachusett.
Also, can you please work for IKEA so I can understand their instructions better now?
Yeah, I'll go about doing that and I'll improve it. Maybe.
I know that you had to like redesign that remote. I know there's a little bit of programming perhaps involved in that. Do you learn how to program when you're in this major? Is that expected?
No,
Oh,
but
okay.
so that's the thing that I should have added in. So as an industrial designer, it's like art meets design and business, but it's like example being is like depending on who you're working for as either a consultancy or a company, you would probably be working alongside with someone in the process. So like if I was having a tough time understanding a lot of things that was happening inside of this controller, either I would do my best to do the research that I need in order to understand it, or they probably, if I was on a team, might pair me up with someone who's an expert in that matter. I think that's the good thing about industrial design is that you become a little bit of a jack of all trades or a generalist because of the various things that you're going for. Like another example would be also like right up in this page right here, I have bags that I was drawing. Of course, I wasn't in fashion, but if I was working alongside a fashion major, I might be able to understand more about and work with some of the textiles and the material and the process, and that would more likely happen.
Yeah, did that crossover ever happen? Did you ever have like fashion majors combined with like industrial design majors to make one product or anything like that? I know that like earlier we talked about like that not really happening, but did it happen in this case?
Not in this case of the bags. Well, so I know it depends on the person, I guess. There's a couple of times where I would go downstairs, down another studio space to talk to someone in fashion in order to understand it, what I was trying to do a little bit more. So we weren't directly paired up with it, but because we were in the same building, there'd be definitely times where we'd go to another major to ask.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Are we all good or?
Thank you so much, John, for such a generous and thoughtful presentation. And thank you to KK, Alyssa. I really enjoyed it. I really learned a lot. I hope the students did too. So thank you all so much for sharing with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much for your time and sharing your work. It was really enjoyable to see all your work that everyone's doing.
I also have a presentation for students about MassArt and the transfer process. Our three presenters, my presentation is going to be maybe not as exciting as yours. So thank you again for coming, and you're more than welcome to stay and hang out. But again, it's not going to be quite as exciting as seeing all of your work. So so thank you again. And in the interest of time, I think I might make a quick adjustment and just jump into some MassArt specific information, if that sounds okay with everybody. Okay, awesome. Let me just get set up really quickly. Okay, so I actually, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't really see the chat. So I will check in a few times during the presentation for any questions that folks might have, but just so you're, aware of that while I'm running through everything. I always start with some brief history for students. MassArt was founded in 1873, and we are the first freestanding public college of art and design in the US and the first to grant a degree, which we are super proud of. Of course, we have changed a little bit since then, and this is what we look like today. You can see us on the map here and our 3 residence halls in purple, and how close our facilities are to the Museum of Fine Arts and the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum here on the Avenue of the Arts. We have a number of galleries on campus, both professional and student galleries, as well as the MassArt Art Museum, or MAM, which is Boston's newest museum, offering a free and accessible contemporary art experience to all audiences. It's a non-collecting museum, so it's always showing temporary exhibitions featuring work of emerging and established artists in Boston. Our campus offers nearly 1 million square feet of space to our roughly 1,800 undergraduate students spread throughout our 7 interconnected buildings. And you can see here just a few of some of our really exciting state-of-the-art facilities here. Our print shop is the largest in New England, and the loom room is probably one of the most beautiful rooms on campus. Not pictured here are the incredible cages that a lot of majors have, where you can rent equipment from your major's facilities. So for example, as a photography major, you can rent anything from medium format cameras, large format cameras, digital cameras, tripods, lighting equipment, all of that stuff that students need to create work and to experiment, but are not expected to be able to afford on their own. Unfortunately, our campus is currently closed to visitors, so you won't be able to see these or other facilities in person for the time being, but you can check out our really robust virtual tour to view some more of our spaces, and I will make sure you all have the link for that later. We have a really incredible faculty at MassArt, all of whom are working artists, designers, researchers, and historians. And MassArt has about a 10-to-1 student to faculty ratio, which is really unique and important because students have stronger relationships with their teachers and receive an incredible amount of support, which is great both for building your artistic practice and building your professional practice. At MassArt, we have 18 different majors, all listed here, and 2 minors, creative writing and 3D arts. I do want to point out that the 4+1 art education program is an opportunity for students to earn both a bachelor's and a master's degree within 5 years at MassArt. And another unique major is SIM, or Studio for Interrelated Media, which is a self-directed major that encourages students to cross-reference different media and design their own program of study. That's a great program for interdisciplinary artists. If you find yourself wanting to take classes outside of your major or outside of what we offer at MassArt, you can take advantage of cross-registration. MassArt belongs to two different consortia, the Pro Arts Consortia and the Colleges of the Fenway Consortia. So students have the opportunity to take up to 2 classes per semester at any of these schools plus MIT. And students do not need to apply to these schools or pay additional tuition to take classes there. You can also participate in intramural sports or performance art clubs, all shared by these consortiums. So essentially, if there's a class that you're interested in taking, like a language class, Spanish, Chinese, French, that we don't offer at MassArt, you can register for those classes at Emmanuel, at Simmons. You could register for a music class or at Berkeley. And it's a really, really easy process. The only thing you have to worry about is the commute, which is also really easy considering MassArt is so centrally located. Beyond Boston, we do have a number of travel opportunities. Students can take advantage of domestic exchange programs with 42 other schools of art and design in the US and Canada through ACAD, as well as international exchange programs in Australia, Israel, Italy, and some of the other countries listed here, for example. And if you decide to take advantage of these international exchange programs, you would be paying MassArt tuition to study at these schools. We do also offer travel courses where students have the opportunity to travel with their entire class for a different country for 2 to 3 weeks. These trips usually coincide with college breaks, and you do earn credit for these courses. These destinations are different every year, but you can see some of the previous course destinations here. So if you're interested in traveling and learning about art and design in another country and want to have that immersive experience but don't want to commit to a whole semester, this is a really, really great option for students. Closer to home, of course, we have more than 50 clubs and over 70 student engagement events or trips every year. These are just a few examples, but if you feel like the right club for you is missing, it's super easy to start one. So there are a huge number of opportunities for students to get involved on and off campus. These are some of our student support organizations. Our Academic Resource Center will help with any academic support you may need, such as help with some writing help, time management, or peer mentoring. And we also have a counseling and wellness center where students can take advantage of short-term therapy sessions, and all of these programs are included in the cost of your tuition. Another student support office I want to highlight is the JET office, or the Justice, Equity, and Transformation office. Their mission is to guide and lead work that achieves systemic equity in all areas of the college institution through transformation of campus culture. So they do this by leading anti-racist dialogues for students, for staff, and for faculty, by conducting equitable art programs and transforming teaching practices, just to name a few of their strategies. Another important office is, of course, the Career Development Center, which is dedicated to helping students find jobs and internships during and after your time at MassArt. So their office advertises more than 500 art and design internships and holds an internship and job fair each spring semester to help students connect with employers. They'll also help you interview prep and build your resume. They use Handshake, which is a database for students and graduates to find paid art and design jobs and qualifying internships. And we're really proud to share that over 80% of MassArt graduates have reported that their current employment is related to their major at MassArt, which really speaks volumes to the level of education and support that our students receive. These are some examples of organizations that have hired MassArt students as interns. A lot of these internships do, of course, turn into full-time employment opportunities, which definitely speaks to how lucky we are to be located in such a culturally enriched city. If you do choose to live on campus, you'll live in either one of our 3 residence halls. Most transfer students are placed in the artist residency, which is apartment style housing. So you'll have a communal kitchen, bathroom, and living space with your suite mates. The residence halls are specially designed for artists, and they also offer themed living options like the LGBTQIA+ floor. Okay, pivoting to some admissions information. These are this year's estimated costs of attendance. The tuition and fees will change every year, so definitely make sure you check the website for the latest numbers. But we are a public institution, so we do offer a New England discounted tuition as well as an in-state discounted tuition, which is awesome. And please note that these additional costs are estimates. They may change based on your major or your housing situation, but they are included in consideration for financial aid, and we definitely want students to factor them into the cost of attendance. And 92% of MassArt students do receive some form of financial assistance, which can come in a variety of forms, including need-based grants, loans, merit scholarships, and work study. To be considered for need-based financial aid, eligible applicants have to submit the FAFSA form by March 1st. It's really important to file the FAFSA as soon as possible to be eligible for certain grant and scholarship opportunities. And if you have any questions about that process, students can reach out to financialaid@massart.edu with any questions. Okay. And of course, now we're going to pivot to some transfer specific information. So I imagine as transfer students, a majority of your concerns will revolve around how your hard-earned credits will transfer. And to begin to understand this process, I think it's really important to understand MassArt's curriculum. At MassArt, we offer a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. This is a specialized curriculum where 2/3 of courses taken are studio classes and 1/3 will be liberal arts and history of art. So you may also be looking at or currently enrolled in a BA program where the ratio is reversed, where you would be taking 2/3 liberal arts classes and 1/3 studio classes. So as you research the next steps, it's really important to know the difference so that you can select the school that best fits your goals, your education goals. And MassArt's curriculum is also very sequential. To earn a MassArt degree, all students must complete the foundation year. Just like it sounds, the foundation year is designed to give students a strong foundation in studio art and design and set you up to succeed in any major that you choose. So this is a list of all 10 mandatory foundations courses. Some of these courses are pretty self-explanatory, such as Drawing 1, or Visual Language, which is 2D design, Form Study, which is 3D design. Thinking, Making, Writing is a writing-based course, and Intro to Western Art focuses on Renaissance and pre-Renaissance art, the Rococo era, and all that jazz. And then in the spring, you have more menu-based classes, such as Time or Time-based Media. This means that there are a lot of class options that students can take to fulfill this requirement, such as Intro to Film and Video, Intro to Animation, or even bookmaking. Drawing Projects is also a menu-based class, which is partially why it's offered in the spring. Students can choose a drawing course that best fits their interests. For example, for students interested in photography, there's a Drawing with Light class, or for students interested in architecture, there's an architectural drawing class. You could take illustration drawing, figure drawing, etc. And then studio electives, of course, that's any studio or studio art or design elective. And then your History of Art elective is also a menu-based class. So some examples might be History of Photography or History of Graphic Design. And transfer students generally need to have the equivalent of these 10 foundation courses completed in order to enter as a sophomore or higher and begin their major studio program right away, just like John was mentioning earlier. And all MassArt students do enter their major program their sophomore year. So if students don't have these or most of these 10 courses, they'll likely transfer in as a foundation student, but we'll talk a little bit more about placement in just a few moments. I first want to talk a little bit about the transfer credit guidelines. So MassArt will accept a maximum of 60 transfer credits. And for credit to transfer, you'll have to have earned a grade of C or higher in a 100 level course or higher. The admissions team and faculty review committees will evaluate the student's portfolio, course descriptions, and college transcripts when awarding credit. So it's really important that your portfolios demonstrate the skills that you gained in previous studio courses. The number of overall credits that transfer won't necessarily determine which level a student is placed at. Because of the sequential nature of MassArt's curriculum, it's really the type of studio credits that transfer that will primarily determine what level a student transfers in as. So let's unpack that a little bit more. Take a look at this really scary chart. So again, it's the type of studio credit. Those are your foundation and major requirements, and your portfolio that will determine what level you'll transfer in as. So if you're transferring into MassArt and you haven't taken any studio classes at the college level, you'll likely be placed as a foundation student starting in the fall semester, and it will likely take 4 years to earn your degree from MassArt. And you may say, I've already taken 2 semesters of general studies. Why am I starting MassArt as a first-year student? And that's again because with our specialized curriculum, you have to complete the foundation's prerequisites before beginning in your major. All of those other credits will still transfer though, as long as they meet our guidelines. And having those credits will give you a lot of flexibility in your schedule later on, which is going to be super helpful. If you are in a place where you have half of the foundations classes completed, you could transfer in as a second semester foundation student starting in the spring. If you have all of your foundations courses completed or most of them completed, you can start as a sophomore in the fall. And then if you have all of your foundations courses completed and some major studio credit, then you could be placed as either a sophomore or a junior. If you are able to transfer as a second semester sophomore or junior, the faculty will also review your application to determine your placement. And you can find the information about the required courses for each major on our website. I understand that placement can be a little bit tricky to understand, so at the end of this presentation, I will make sure you all have my email address. Please feel free to send me a copy of your unofficial transcript. I'm more than happy to take a look at it and advise you as to what your placement might be and what the process may look like for you. I do like to pause here and just see if any students have any questions so far. I know that especially placement can be a little bit confusing. We will get into application requirements and portfolio in just a few minutes, so I just want to see if anyone has any questions about anything so far.
I have one question, Shannon. So if students want to know what courses specifically that they're taking will transfer, are you the best person for them to contact?
Yes, definitely. And again, I will make sure that you all have my email. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have about which courses that you can take that will be equivalent to some of our foundation requirements.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I'll just move on to the application requirements. But we have a small group today, so you know, if you do have any questions that pop up, just feel free to jump in. I don't mind at all. So the Common App is where students will complete their application, and you'll submit your materials electronically through there. After you submit your application, you will be emailed a link within 2 days of MassArt receiving your application, through which you can upload the portfolio. So you want to make sure you factor that timeline in when you apply. You can always check the status of your application using the application portal as well, and your decision letters and scholarship awards, if applicable, are also released electronically through the portal. Decisions are released on a rolling basis, so students can expect to receive a decision maybe 4 to 6 weeks after the deadline. Now, the purpose of your essay is to show us how well you can write and also to tell us something about you that we don't otherwise know from the rest of your application. We definitely recommend that you make it personal and try to avoid cliches and generalizations. For transfers, it is often helpful for them to specifically address why they're transferring. Why do you want to be at MassArt? What was your experience like at a previous institution? And are there any aspects of your application that you would like to give some context to, such as grades or your coursework? Your essay should be a minimum of 500 words, but it really shouldn't exceed 750 words. Your resume or activity list, we just want to know what you're doing outside of class. Again, just another way to get to know you. Just remember that it's quantity over quality over quantity here, not quantity over quality, sorry. You can list sports, you can list volunteer work, studio or academic awards, clubs that you were a part of, anything like that. For your letters of recommendation, we do recommend asking someone like an art teacher, but you can also ask a liberal arts teacher, a guidance counselor, an employer or mentor, really anybody who can speak to your artistic practice and your work ethic, excluding family and friends. For your official college and high school transcripts, they're only considered official if they're sent to us directly from your school. So you just want to contact your high school, contact your registrar's office at your college, and have them send those over to us. However, you can always send us your unofficial transcripts so that we can advise you. We'll talk a little bit more about the portfolio in just a few minutes. If there are any international students, we can check in during the Q&A, but there are 2 additional requirements, one being the English proficiency exam score and your evaluated transcripts. Okay, the deadline for the transfer application for the fall 2021 semester is March 1st. And the deadline for the spring semester is usually in mid-October. And finally, we are going to talk about the portfolio. So your portfolio should consist of a minimum of 15 to 20 pieces of your strongest and most recent work. And then if you have taken studio classes at the college level, you'll want to submit 3 to 5 pieces from each of those studio classes you're hoping to get credit for, because we'll look at those portfolio pieces when we're awarding credit again. Your portfolio pieces should reflect your interests, your skills, your willingness to explore, experiment, and express yourself. These are some examples of portfolio pieces that students have submitted in the past. Keep in mind that this is ideally your best work, and we are looking to see your technical skills. Observational drawing is a great and important way to show us technical skills, but you can also show us your technical skills through photo, through graphic design, through construction, whatever best describes your strengths. A question I get a lot is, can I include sketchbook pieces? I love to see sketchbook pieces. I think it's a great way to see how you're thinking, what you're thinking about. I think this is a really good example, though, of a sketchbook piece that's worth including. It feels really full and really considered. It's not just a quick doodle, so I think it's a good example. But the answer is definitely yes. Love to see them. And of course, we also want to see your conceptual skills. We want you to show us your ideas, what you're thinking about, and how you're thinking. There's definitely no cookie cutter way of putting a portfolio together. It definitely depends on individual experiences. So we really encourage you to take inventory of the classes that you've taken, of the experiences you've had, the materials that you love to work with, and your interests. Do keep in mind that when you apply as a transfer, sometimes you are applying to a particular program, so you also want to keep that in mind when you're curating your portfolio. You want to think about which pieces show your technical skills the best, which pieces express your ideas and interests the best. But that being said, your portfolio does not have to be all one media, and it certainly doesn't have to be a little bit of every medium. Just remember that you're showing us what you're interested in and what your strengths are. And as I said earlier, if you have taken studio art classes at the college level, you really do want to submit, around 3 to 5 pieces from each of those courses, because when MassArt is awarding credit, we're looking at your transcripts, your grades, but we're also looking at the strength of your portfolio when awarding credit. Typically, transfer students who have taken studio classes submit somewhere from 20 to 30 pieces, so you're not limited to that just 15 to 20, that's just the minimum. Here are some examples of work that students have submitted in the past to get credit for. Drawing 1, for example, our foundations courses. Visual language, which is again our 2D design class. Form studies, our 3D design, so sculpture, ceramics, anything like that. Drawing projects, again, is a menu-based class. There's a lot of flexibility here. Digital drawing, figure drawing, illustration drawing, lots of different fun stuff. And then time is going to be time-based media. So that's, this is a really adorable animation. This is a short video. And 2 more animations. And then of course the studio elective, that's any art or design elective, painting, fashion design, photography, illustration, an additional 3D class, graphic design, photography, any of those things will fall under, that studio elective requirement. Some uploading tips. When you are uploading your portfolio, you'll have the option to add some details for each of those works that you're uploading. You want to include a title if you have one, the year it was created, the media and size, and any other info like that. If it's a piece that you made as part of a studio course, you definitely want to include that, like made in drawing 1 or made in painting 1, anything like that. And then when you're photographing your work, you really want to make sure that the artwork is level, and you want to make sure that the lighting is even. Nothing like, you see how my glasses are reflecting the light right now? Nothing like, no glares, nothing like that. And you definitely want to crop the image when possible. So these are 2 bad examples of how not to photograph your work. We have some binder clips in the background. We can see the easel, the books, some like light glaring in the background. You want to make sure that you crop your image so that all we're seeing is your beautiful work, your beautiful drawings. So this is a better example of how to photograph your work. If you want to get feedback on your portfolio, you can sign up for one of the National Portfolio Days coming up, I think every weekend through the beginning of December. But what's really nice about them all being virtual this year is that you can sign up for any weekend. Traditionally there's one in Philadelphia, one in Boston, but this year they're all virtual, so you can sign up for whichever one best fits your schedule, and you can get some really valuable feedback from a number of different universities on your work. I would also encourage you to check out our virtual tour. It is a really robust tour that can give you an idea of all of everything our campus has to offer. And you can take a closer look at MassArt's facilities, especially the facilities for the major that you're interested in. And of course, you can also schedule a portfolio review with us. You just go to massart.edu/connect. Make sure you select transfer student portfolio review so that you're connected with someone who will be able to answer any transfer specific questions that you have, most likely me. And MAM also has some really fantastic virtual programming that you can interact with from our website. And of course, these are our socials if you want to follow us. And lastly, that's my contact information. Again, my name is Shannon Gallagher. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions that come up after today. If you want me to look at your transcript, your portfolio, even your essay, we're all here to support you, so definitely please reach out. And with that, I will throw it back to all of you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Actually, before I answer any questions, I just want to send along an inquiry form for everybody in the chat. Oops, not the URL at the end. Just the URL. Hopefully this works. And that's just a way to stay in touch with us. We'll check off that you attended the presentation session today, and yeah, just to stay in touch. It's a super quick form. Okay, so I'm seeing the first question come in from Adoria. Are the 3 to 5 from each class different from the portfolio? No, so that's a really, really good question. It's in addition to those 15, well, it's all inclusive. It's all one portfolio. So you'll submit ideally, some of your personal work and then some examples of work that you made in each class. So again, a lot of students who are transferring from another school that have taken studio classes at the college level will submit somewhere between 20 and 30 pieces, some personal work, some coursework from the classes that they've taken. Some transfer students still only submit 15 to 20 pieces, and that's totally okay, especially if you haven't taken any studio courses at the college level. That's totally normal. Do you have to declare a major before transferring? That's a really important question. So if you're going to be transferring to MassArt as a foundation student, or in other words, as a first-year student, you do not need to declare a major. All MassArt students start in the foundation year, and then they begin their major studio program as a sophomore. If you are transferring in as a sophomore or a junior, though, then you would need to declare your major before transferring. So it depends a little bit on where you are in that trajectory.
So Shannon, I have a question again. So when I'm advising students, it's difficult because their portfolio is their best work. So they have 20 images of their best work. And then the work for the courses that they've taken are not necessarily their best work. So how do they distinguish that from their portfolio?
That's another really good question. That's, you know, and a lot of students are like that. For example, you have a photography student who maybe drawing isn't their forte. It's not what they enjoy doing. Maybe not what they're best at, but, you know, you still want to get credit for taking drawing one and, you know, any other of those courses. So you just want to indicate that in your portfolio under the artwork details, this is from drawing one, for example, or, you know, this is from 3D design. And then a lot of students do structure their portfolio when they're uploading it. So they upload all of their, you know, their best work first, and then they have like any supplemental work from their classes following that. But we definitely understand. So if you're a student who's worried about submitting 3D work and 3D is not your thing, you know, all of MassArt students go into one particular major that, you know, represents the kind of artwork that they want to make. So they're definitely, every kind of student will have their strengths and also their weaknesses. So don't stress too much about the coursework pieces.
Thanks again.
Of course. I know you touched on this, but how is the college handling COVID? Are you requiring negative tests? That's a really great question too. So students are getting tested. I think it's weekly or bi-weekly. I'm sorry. I'm not exactly sure. Or actually, no, it's weekly or bi-weekly, but it depends on how many classes that you have on campus. So the students that are living on campus in the dormitories are getting tested more frequently. Students who have more in-person classes, more hybrid classes, are getting tested more frequently. And then other students who are maybe only on campus once or twice a week to use the studios only have to get tested less frequently. So it's not just one test, it's sort of ongoing, and those tests are covered by the college. They're free, just to, you know, try to keep our community as safe as possible. Hopefully by the time we transfer, it won't be as big of an issue. Yeah, I hope so too. Do you have transfer agreements with community colleges? We don't. MassArt doesn't participate in mass transfer, and part of the reason is because some of our sophomore major studio coursework, and of course our junior major studio coursework as well, is a little bit less flexible than the foundations year, for example. So we generally do, most students who transfer, I should say, will take the equivalent of the foundation courses at another school or at a community college, and then transfer in as a sophomore and begin their major studio coursework at MassArt. But that's not to say that there are no juniors who transfer. We do definitely get a lot of juniors who transfer that have taken their sophomore major studio work at a community college. And study abroad options, yes, study abroad options are definitely open for transfer students. Unfortunately, this year there's no study abroad opportunities just with everything going on. But yeah, transfer students are definitely eligible for all of the same programs that not transfer students are eligible for. A fun factoid about the school, something you find cool or interesting. That's a really fun question. I think that one of my favorite things to, you know, talk about when talking about MassArt is how many opportunities there are for students to share their work in an exhibition setting. You know, as I said earlier, we have a lot of galleries on campus, both professional galleries and student galleries. And there are opportunities for students to curate shows as well, not just exhibit their work. So you do have that experience of, you know, being a student, of working on your coursework, you know, working on your coursework for your classes, but then also exhibiting your work, sharing it, going to openings, speaking at openings. So you have a lot of those real world experiences built in as well. And then of course, one of my favorite things, I was a photography major at MassArt. One of my favorite things are the photo lectures that we used to have every Tuesday. MassArt gets some of the most incredible speakers to come and give artist lectures to the school. So I would say any MassArt student, you have to take advantage of them because they're awesome. Do students have shows at MAM? Can students get into the museums of Boston for free? Yes, I should have definitely mentioned that. So the MFA, the ICA, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, definitely take advantage of that because otherwise they're expensive. And I don't actually know if students have shows at MAM. I think it's mostly for, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they've exhibited some graduate work, but I don't know if they do any shows with current students. You're welcome.
So I have a question about, oh, sorry, didn't think I would be echoing.
I don't hear that. I think you're good.
Okay, it must have been temporary then. So if you are an older than average student, but you would be interested in living on campus, are there single room options?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. MassArt as a specialty school, I mean, we definitely have a lot of, you know, old students who are not in between 18 and 25. So it's definitely not atypical. And if you do still want to live on campus, most transfer students in general are placed in the artist residency where there are just single options.
And then I saw that there was like a transport hub on the on the map that you showed. Is that connected to the subway? Is that connected to the commuter rail?
Oh yes, so MassArt is right out front of the Green Line, the
Okay.
on the T, which is the subway. I think it's the E line. It's the E line, but we're also walking distance from the Orange Line. It's maybe a 5 to 10 minute walk. And then we're also really close to a couple major subway lines. The 66, definitely, the 31, which I think is the one that goes into JP. But yeah, it's for commuting, it's really, really easy. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm gonna send you all in the chat my email. If you have any questions that come up after today, if you have any personal questions you want to ask, again, if you want to schedule a portfolio review or, you know, just like a virtual chat where we can talk in person or as in person as possible, you can go to massart.edu/connect, schedule something. You can email me directly to schedule something. It's totally fine too. And yeah, keep in touch. We're here to help with, you know, whatever you need. And again, if you want to fill out this inquiry form to stay in touch, I'm going to send that one more time here too. And thank you all so much for having me. It was such a great, this presentation was especially a lot of fun. We had like a lot of exciting work shared.
We really appreciate you taking, and I don't know if the alum are still in here or not. It looks like they're not, but we really appreciate you taking your time to do this on the weekend too.
Oh yeah, of course.
Shannon, thank you so much. That was very helpful. And we can use this video to show students who couldn't make it today as well.
Oh
So,
yeah, I'm still recording, I think.
and it was so exciting.
I'm so
Yeah,
glad.
I appreciate. Oh, sorry.
I have to figure out how to stop this recording and share it. It looks like the red light is, you're gonna see this part in the recording too, me figuring out how to do that. So so stay tuned for me figuring out how to stop this recording and share it.
Yeah, I mean,
Worst case scenario, I'm sure there's some way to crop it down if needed.
Yeah, I might. Oh, we might need to edit some of this.
Gonna have to find a film major.
Yeah, right. Well, I look forward to talking to you all again soon. You know, hopefully next semester I imagine we'll all still be virtual, but you know, would love to connect again next semester as well.
yeah, thank you. A lot of the questions I had you answered during the little slideshow, so it was very informative. Thank you.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Have a great
Doria
rest
is
of
our
your-
question queen too, so that says a lot that you got through
I
a lot
have
of
to
her.
know. I have to know everything. So
I'm
I
the same way.
I think it's really great because there's so many, you asked some especially good questions, and I think that that's good information for everybody to know.
I specifically asked her before, I'm like, you're in charge of coming up with questions ahead of time because this is your specialty here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a school that I'm interested in, so of course I have questions for myself and everyone too as well. So, yeah. Well, thank you for putting this on for us. We appreciate
You're
it.
so welcome. Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure to meet all of you. I hope to, you know, meet you all in person one of these days, one of these years.
Yeah, I think a lot of our students are planning on going to a portfolio day. I know that like Bethany probably went and I'm going, and so yeah, maybe we'll see you. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely.
You said the portfolio days are through the end of the calendar year on the
I can
weekends.
actually check right now.
I know there's one on the 21st and the 22nd, and then one December 8th. So
15th on the 22nd. There's another one. I don't actually, no, it doesn't look like there's one Thanksgiving weekend.
That's understandable.
And then there's one on the 5th of December. And that's the last one. Yeah, the last one's on the 5th of December.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Well, enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. And take care. Have a happy, safe holiday coming up.
Yeah.
okay, bye-bye,
Bye.
Shannon. Nice to meet you.
Bye. Nice to meet you all too. Take care.
Bye.